Imagine a country torn apart, not just by foreign invaders, but by its own sons. Each convinced they were the only ones fighting for freedom. In the rugged mountains of Yugoslavia during World War II, a strange and tragic story unfolded. Two resistance movements, both born from the ashes of invasion, would wage war not only against the Axis powers, but against each other. One side fought under the banner of the king, the Chetniks, Royalist guerrillas led by General Draža Mihailović. The other side followed a new and dangerous dream, a world ruled by the workers, led by Josip Broz Tito and his communist partisans. Their battle wasn't just about territory. It was about what Yugoslavia would become, a kingdom reborn or a revolution realized. And caught in the middle were millions of civilians. Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, Montenegrins, each with their own loyalties, fears, and scars. This is the story of the forgotten civil war inside World War II. The war within the war. When enemies became allies, in April 1941, Nazi Germany struck Yugoslavia with overwhelming force. Within days, the Royal Army, nearly 700,000 strong on paper, collapsed. The king fled to London. The government surrendered, and what was once a nation became a jigsaw puzzle carved up by Hitler and Mussolini. Germany took the north. Italy seized the coast. Hungary and Bulgaria grabbed their borderlands. And in the center of this chaos, a new puppet state was born. The independent state of Croatia, ruled by the fascist Ustaša. Led by Ante Pavelić, the Ustaša regime unleashed a campaign of terror unlike anything the Balkans had ever seen. They targeted Serbs, Jews, and Roma in horrific massacres that even shocked the German SS. Villages were burned. Entire communities were erased. As Yugoslavia disintegrated, resistance began to flicker across the mountains. Small bands of soldiers, villagers, and veterans took up arms. But they were divided by more than just geography. They were divided by ideology. Out of this chaos rose two men who would shape Yugoslavia's destiny: Draža Mihailović, a career officer, monarchist, and patriot. Hiding in the forests of western Serbia, he gathered what remained of the royal army. He called his men Chetniks, a name with roots in older Balkan guerrilla traditions, and swore loyalty to the exiled king in London. Mihailovic's goal was cautious but clear: to survive, to protect Serbian civilians from Axis reprisals, and to wait for the Allies to return. He believed the key to victory was patience, not reckless attacks. But on the other side of Yugoslavia, a very different leader was emerging. Josip Broz Tito, a hardened communist revolutionary, loyal to Moscow and to Stalin's orders. While Mihailović waited, Tito acted. From the summer of 1941, his partisans launched open revolt against the Germans, Italians, and anyone who stood in their way. For Tito, every attack that provoked German retaliation was useful. Every village bombed, every civilian killed. It all fueled anger, radicalization, and recruitment. Tito understood a brutal truth: desperation breeds revolution. To Mihailović, this was madness. He saw Tito's uprisings as suicide, disasters that would only lead to German massacres of innocent Serbs. So, he made a fateful choice: to fight not just the Axis, but the communists too. By late 1941, the fragile alliance between Chetniks and Partisans collapsed. They met face to face, Tito and Mihailović, trying to find common ground. But their visions could not coexist. Tito wanted revolution. Mihailović wanted restoration. Within weeks, their talks dissolved into gunfire. The Germans, meanwhile, watched with interest. They realized that Yugoslavia's resistance was splitting in two. And they could use that. Some Chetnik commanders, desperate for weapons and food, began making uneasy deals with Axis officers. They swore they would not attack German units if allowed to fight the communists freely. To outside observers, this looked like collaboration. But for many Chetniks, it was pure survival. London had abandoned them. Moscow supplied only Tito. So to keep fighting, or simply to live, they struck local truces with the enemy they hated. This, perhaps more than anything, defined the tragedy of Mihailovic's movement. They were fighting on the edge of the impossible. Starving, surrounded, torn between morality and survival. And while they hesitated, Tito's partisans were growing. By 1943, they had transformed from scattered guerrillas into an organized army. Battle, hardened, disciplined, and armed by the Soviets. As Italy collapsed and Germany shifted troops to the Eastern Front, power in the Balkans shifted once again. The Italians, desperate to hold influence, armed certain Chetnik groups to fight Tito. Other Chetniks, however, were hunted down by the Germans, who no longer trusted them. The result was chaos. A war with no clear sides. In some valleys, Chetniks and Germans fought shoulder to shoulder against the communists. In others, they turned their guns on each other. The Chetnik dream was dying. Mihailovic's command fractured. His name, once synonymous with royal resistance, now carried the taint of collaboration. In London, Churchill's government, frustrated by the Chetniks' passivity, switched support to Tito, the man who had once been branded a rebel. By 1944, Tito's partisans were being supplied directly by the Allies. They had aircraft, weapons, and the full backing of Stalin's Red Army. When the Soviets entered the Balkans that autumn, it was the final blow. Mihailovic's forces, starved, divided, and leaderless, collapsed under the communist advance. Tito swept through Serbia, hailed as a liberator. The Royalist dream was over. By early 1945, Tito's Yugoslavia was reborn, but not as a kingdom. It was a socialist federation, with Tito at its head. Draža Mihailović went into hiding, moving from mountain to mountain as his men were hunted down. In 1946, he was captured, tried for treason, and executed by firing squad. The man who once dreamed of saving his country died branded as its betrayer. But history is rarely so simple. Were the Chetniks heroes or collaborators? The truth lies somewhere in the gray space between. Some fought bravely against impossible odds. Others made choices that, in hindsight, look like betrayal. But all were trapped in a nightmare. A war within a war, where survival itself was an act of compromise. The Chetnik partisan conflict wasn't just a military struggle. It was a clash of identities. Monarchy versus revolution, nationalism versus ideology, tradition versus change. And in many ways, its scars still run deep across the Balkans today. To some, Mihailović remains a patriot, a symbol of resistance against tyranny. To others, he is a collaborator who chose the wrong side of history. Both may be true, because when a nation collapses and every choice costs lives, right and wrong blur into survival. The story of the Chetniks and Tito's partisans reminds us that even in the fight against evil, unity is fragile, and ideology can be as deadly as war itself. If you found this story as haunting as it is fascinating, you'll want to see how these events shaped the Cold War to come. When Tito stood up to Stalin and carved his own path between East and West. Click here to watch Tito vs. Stalin, the Balkan gamble that shocked the world. And if you're passionate about uncovering the forgotten sides of history, hit like, share this video, and join us for more stories that reveal the human side of war. Because sometimes, the greatest battles are the ones fought within.